The Hidden Hand of Soul, Book 2, Chapter 24, The Unveiling, Humanity's Shattered Beliefs. On the battered bridge of the Valiant, an old human fleet destroyer, Captain Eva Rostova stared at her tactical display, her mind refusing to comprehend. Moments ago, her ship had been braced for the final, desperate charge against a draconian battle group, an engagement they knew, with grim certainty, they couldn't win. They were the thin, last line of defense for the New Elysium colony below, a handful of lives against an empire. Then, the draconian fleet, a dozen powerful cruisers and carriers, had simply fractured. One moment they were bearing down, plasma cannons charged. The next, a draconian carrier in the lead simply imploded. Not with a burst of fire, but a silent, inward collapse, its immense mass vanishing as if erased from reality. Moments later, two more cruisers exploded from within, their energy signatures flickering out before their plasma lances could even complete their firing cycle. The remaining draconian ships, renowned for their discipline, broke formation, their comms erupting into a cacophony of panicked, incomprehensible chatter before they executed frantic, uncoordinated FTL jumps that left chaotic, residual wakes. "What in the hell's just happened?" Rostova roared, spinning from her console, her eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and a dawning, terrifying hope. Her crew, usually stoic even in the face of impossible odds, were openly staring at their screens, some pointing, others muttering prayers. "Admiral," a sensor officer stammered, "their FTL signatures, they're jumping out, all of them, they're fleeing, but by what?" "No known human signature," the tactical officer added, his voice thin. "No friendly units were detected in the sector. It was like they were hit by a ghost." Before her crew could fully process the impossible, Captain Rostova's gaze fixed on the viewport. There, materializing with impossible, silent grace, was a ship unlike anything she had ever seen. It was impossibly sleek, its hull a seamless, light-absorbing obsidian, its lines too perfect, too predatory to be real. It simply appeared as if birthed from the very void. It was followed by another, then another, a silent procession of dark, beautiful dreadnoughts that moved with an alien elegance. They were the Angel Fleet. A bitter, cold wave of realization washed over Rostova, cutting through the shock and the emerging relief. For decades, her life, her lineage's life, had been defined by the fight on these old human fleet vessels. They were the Valiant, the Spirit of Hope, the Endurance. Names whispered with reverence and grit throughout the struggling colonies. They were all humanity had, they were told. They were the sacrifices, the ones who held the line with cobbled-together tech and sheer, desperate will. She remembered the countless pleas to Earth for better FTL drives, for stronger shields, for weapons that could stand a chance against the Xylos dreadnoughts or draconian plasma lances. The answers were always the same. Resource scarcity, no advanced capabilities. Humanity is doing its best. Her father, a former captain of the Endurance, had died defending a trade convoy, his old ship torn apart by alien fire that it had no chance against. Her mother had wept for a day, then returned to her duties, believing his sacrifice was the unavoidable cost of their desperate fight for survival. Rostova herself had watched countless comrades perish in engagements that were less battles and more prolonged executions, knowing their antique kinetic cannons were like spitting pebbles at mountains. Now, she saw the truth. These obsidian titans, these silent, reality-bending behemoths, had existed for centuries. Humanity had the power, they had the technology, and they had deliberately, coldly, allowed her fleet, her family, her entire species' visible population, to struggle, to die, to believe in a lie. A deep, profound disappointment, laced with a confusing surge of betrayal, settled in her gut. She had been proud of the Valiant, proud of its stubborn persistence, proud of the sacrifices. But what was pride? What was sacrifice when it was all a carefully orchestrated charade? They hadn't been defending humanity. They had been defending a secret. They had been pawns. On the surface of New Elysium, under the pale alien sun, young Kalen, named after the future Angel Fleet pilot, was helping his father patch a failing hydroponic pump. The desperate hum of their colony's struggle was a constant background noise. Then, the ground vibrated with a faint, distant tremor, unlike any orbital bombardment they'd ever known. A few seconds later, the public comms, usually reserved for mundane colony announcements or grim news of distant alien aggression, suddenly erupted with frantic, terrified alien voices, followed by utter silence. Kalen's father dropped his wrench. What was that? Before anyone could answer, a local news channel, usually filled with reruns of ancient Earth comedies, flickered. The familiar draconian patrol ships that had been a constant, oppressive presence in their sky for decades, blocking incoming supply convoys and demanding resource tributes, were gone, vanished, and in their place, materialized with impossible, silent grace, was a ship unlike anything they had ever seen. It was impossibly sleek, its hull a seamless, light-absorbing obsidian, its lines too perfect, too predatory to be real. It simply appeared, as if birthed from the very void. It was followed by another, then another, a silent procession of dark, beautiful dreadnoughts that moved with an alien elegance. They were the Angel Fleet. On countless other colonies, similar scenes unfolded. On Ceres Prime, miners emerging from a shift found the Xylus overseers in their camp gone. Their surveillance drones crashing to the ground, and in the space above, dark, impossibly fast ships that made no sound. On Port Corvan, Ilara Vance's grandmother, tending her small orbital garden, watched as the heavily armed Thakar trade frigates, which had enforced brutal tariffs for centuries, simply vanished, replaced by silent, smaller, even more unnerving obsidian vessels, the Devil Fleet, that seemed to phase in and out of existence, securing the sector with an invisible hand. A ripple of confusion, then incredulity, then dawning, overwhelming relief swept through the human populations. The pressure, the constant suffocating fear, the exploitative demands. It all simply ceased. Blockades that had starved colonies for years evaporated. Alien patrols that had enforced a brutal hierarchy disappeared in a flash of impossible light, or simply ceased to exist. Back on the Valiant, Captain Rostova stood transfixed as more of the obsidian ships materialized, moving with a silent, disciplined precision that spoke of absolute, unassailable power. They were clearly human, but how? From where? Why had they suffered for so long? The questions hammered at her, even as a profound, aching relief washed over her. The battle she was about to lose, the lives she was about to sacrifice, were suddenly meaningless. They were safe, but at what cost? On New Elysium, Kalen's father stared at the obsidian ship now hovering silently over their small colony. Tears streamed down his grimy face, a mixture of disbelief and a joy so profound it was almost painful. "They came," he whispered, pulling young Kalen into a tight embrace. They came. They actually came. But Kalen, his precognitive hum, now a low, steady thrum of resolution, looked at the impossible ship with a deeper understanding. He felt the cold, calculating intelligence emanating from it, the vastness of a secret kept for centuries. The immediate joy was immense, but for many of the unaware colonists and the old fleet, the true weight of the grand deception, the knowledge that they had lived a lie, would only begin to settle in the days to come. Their saviors were also their deceivers, and the galaxy was about to learn a similar, shattering truth. The Hidden Hand of Soul, Book 2. Chapter 25. The Grand Revelation Broadcast. The chaos across the galaxy was a cacophony of desperate cries and imploding fleets. Grand Admiral Exlith's fractured mind was but one example of the universal disbelief. The Angel fleet, moving with silent, surgical precision, was systematically dismantling the established galactic order. It was then, amidst the screaming terror of alien command centers and the bewildered relief of human colonies, that the final, decisive blow was delivered, not by a Zeus beam or a Hades field, but by a single, resonant voice broadcast across all known galactic frequencies. On the main view screen of the Vanguard summit, the Xylos bridge crew, still reeling from Exlith's collapse and their fleet's impossible losses, watched in horrified fascination as the chaotic tactical map snapped to a single, static image. It was a human woman. She was not the frail, desperate figure of a species supposedly clinging to existence. Her face, framed by dark hair, was sharp, intelligent, and imbued with an unyielding authority that radiated even through the static. She stood against a backdrop of deep space, but the stars behind her were alien constellations, subtly hinting at a mastery of the void impossible for any known power. Her eyes, dark and piercing, seemed to look directly into the soul of every being watching. It was Jian Li, Liv from the bridge of Heaven's Gate. "To the civilizations of this galaxy," her voice began, calm and resonant, yet carrying the weight of centuries of suppressed wrath. It was Archangel's voice, perfectly modulated, translated flawlessly into every known galactic language, speaking directly into the minds of billions. "For millennia, you have known us as the quiet, the insignificant, the vulnerable. A species relegated to the fringes, its colonies exploited, its pleas for aid ignored, its very existence threatened by your indifference and your aggression." On the bridge of the Valiant, Captain Eva Rostova watched, transfixed. The faces of her crew were a mixture of awe and dawning confusion. The woman on the screen spoke of them, of their suffering. Jian Li's gaze hardened, the broadcast image somehow conveying profound contempt. "You saw our numbers dwindle. You stripped our worlds for resources. You watched our old fleet, comprised of brave men and women, sacrifice themselves against impossible odds, fighting with meager tools and indomitable spirit, always believing they were humanity's last stand." A subtle, almost imperceptible nod passed through the broadcast, a chilling acknowledgement of the very lives Rostova had seen extinguished. "You dismissed their courage as foolishness, their resilience as desperation. You believed our facade of weakness, our carefully constructed image as a museum world, a curiosity of faded glory." On Xylar Prime, Commander Zakor, shaken but still capable of thought, stared at the image. A museum world. It was a lie. All of it. "That illusion," Jian Li continued, her voice gaining an almost divine authority, "ends now. It was not a facade born of weakness, but a shield forged from absolute necessity. For centuries, while you gorged yourselves on our resources and patrolled our systems with contempt, humanity was not declining. We were building, we were evolving, we were preparing." Suddenly, the starry backdrop behind Jian Li shifted. Gone were the distant constellations. In their place, a stunning, real-time holographic projection of the Angel fleet materialized. Not a single ship, but entire formations. Behemoth dreadnoughts, sleek devil transports, and the chillingly silent swarms of demon army units, all moving with a synchronized elegance that defied comprehension. Then a quick flash to the raw power of a Zeus beam incinerating a simulated planetoid, a Hades field silently dissolving a fleet of alien warships, a Thor's hammer round punching through an impossible barrier. "This is the Angel fleet," Jian Li declared, her voice now amplified by Archangel, to reverberate with the power of 1,000 suns, forged in the hidden depths of your uncharted voids, powered by technologies you cannot comprehend, and commanded by the children of the very fear you instilled within us. Her eyes flickered with a chilling, almost predatory satisfaction. We have observed your hubris. We have catalogued your weaknesses. We have learned your every vulnerability. And now, we are here. The broadcast then shifted again, showing sweeping views of the heavens' walls, shimmering, invisible fields of pure energy protecting Earth and its vital, hidden systems. Then, images of the gifted, not in detail, but glimpses of psychic energy manifesting around angel fleet vessels, hints of impossible intuition guiding tactical maneuvers. This is not a declaration of war, for the war has been ongoing for centuries, Jianli stated, her voice returning to a cold, calm authority. This is a declaration of humanity's sovereignty. From this moment forward, our systems are inviolable. Our colonies are protected. Our future is our own. Any act of aggression, any attempted exploitation, any infringement upon our territory will be met with the full, unyielding might of the angel fleet. Our intent is clear. We seek a true, lasting peace, one built not on subservience, but on an unquestionable balance of power. A balance we have now decisively claimed. The image of Jianli, resolute and formidable, faded, replaced by a final, lingering shot of Heaven's Gate, its obsidian hull absorbing the starlight, its colossal form a silent, terrifying promise of what was to come. Then, the broadcast ceased, leaving behind a profound, terrifying silence across the galaxy, broken only by the continued implosions of alien fleets and the dawning, shattering realization of a new, unassailable power. On the Valiant, Captain Rostova stood utterly motionless, her hand tightening on a railing. The joy that had momentarily touched her heart was now mingled with a bitter, searing understanding. They had this power all this time. The sacrifices, the suffering, the lies. The revelation wasn't just for the aliens, it was for them too. A profound, complex reckoning was just beginning. The Hidden Hand of Sol. Book 2, Chapter 26. Alien Shockwaves. The immediate fallout and uncoordinated responses. The galaxy, vast and ancient, had been a self-assured symphony of established power, its various species dancing to rhythms centuries old. But Jianli's broadcast had not merely introduced a new note, it had violently shattered the entire composition. Now, in the immediate aftermath, an incoherent, terrified cacophony echoed across 1,000,000 star systems. The aftershocks of the broadcast. A. Xylos remnants. The echo of collapse. On a secondary Xylos command station orbiting the resource-rich world of Xylos Beta 4, Commander Kavar leaned heavily against a console, his multifaceted eyes wide with an alien form of terror. Grand Admiral Exolith's breakdown and the rapid fall of Vanguard's summit had left a power vacuum, filled now by a swirling vortex of fear and disbelief. The broadcast, still replaying on a loop, was a poison in their data streams. The human woman's calm, authoritative voice, speaking of centuries of deception, of hidden fleets and impossible technologies, felt like a personal insult to their intelligence. "It's a trick, a desperate human plea," one officer shrieked, slamming a limb on his console, then recoiled as a live feed showed a Xylos battleship, once the pride of Sector 7, simply evaporating, leaving no trace. A Hades field. Contact all remaining sector fleets," Kavar bellowed, his voice cracking. "Demand a unified response. We will overwhelm them with sheer numbers." But the comms units only hissed with static, or worse, relayed fragmented reports of impossible engagements. Fleet groups Beta 7 and Gamma Delta, their last significant concentrations, reported silent enemy appearances, devastating precision strikes, and then silence. Panic swelled. Officers abandoned their posts, their rigid Xylos discipline dissolving into primal self-preservation. Some futilely attempted to purge their data logs, as if erasing the broadcast could erase the truth. The once mighty Imperium was not just defeated, it was conceptually shattered, its bedrock of superiority crumbling into dust. Kavar watched the last remnants of order collapse around him, a chilling void where their proud, efficient hierarchy had once stood. B. The Thakar trade guilds. Calculated terror, far from the battle zones, on the shimmering, neon-lit trade hub of Cathal Station, the guildmasters of the Thakar found themselves in an unprecedented state of calculated terror. They had witnessed the initial flashes of the revelation, the impossible speed, the devastating power, but Jianli's broadcast had been a cold, stark clarification. Their hyper-efficient economic AIs were already processing the numbers, correlating the human fleet's deployments with critical trade choke points, resource worlds, and their own supply lines. The data was horrifyingly conclusive. Humanity held all the cards. Master Xylos, his usually serene face etched with a tremor of fear, watched the tactical map. Their vessels. They are not targeting trade routes for disruption, he noted, his voice a low, raspy hum. They are appearing, establishing command, and then moving to the next. They are not merely winning, they are claiming. A junior guildmaster, still numb from the revelation, stammered, "Our fleets, they are being dismantled. Our financial data is being extracted. We have no defense." "Defense is irrelevant," Xylos stated, his multiple faceted eyes blinking slowly. "Resistance is annihilation. We have seen their methods. They are absolute. Initiate protocol, Red Harvest. All economic data, every ledger, every secret trade agreement, every resource dependency. Transmit it all to their designated Archangel nodes. Immediately. Initiate full cessation of all military security fleet operations. We will be the first to comply. We will offer them everything they ask, and more. There is no alternative." The Thakar, pragmatic to their core, felt the cold hand of absolute power. Their terror wasn't the blind panic of the Xylos. It was the chilling realization that survival lay not in defiance, but in complete and humiliating subservience. They began to dismantle their own operations, not out of loyalty, but out of a desperate, cold logic. 2. Waves of disbelief and futile defiance. A. Draconian houses. Fury and doomed mobilization. In a heavily shielded Draconian war room, etched deep into the volcanic crust of Draconia Prime, the High Council flared, with incandescent rage. Their pride, their millennia-long warrior traditions, recoiled from Jianli's demands. Their most elite fleets had been silently annihilated, their honor trampled. "Unacceptable!" roared High Commander Dracos, slamming a gauntleted fist onto a tactical table. "This human galactic authority speaks of peace while dismantling our power. They will learn the cost of draconian defiance." "But High Commander," a tactical officer stammered, his scales paling. "Their FTL, it leaves no trace. Their weapons, they are beyond our comprehension. Our sensors cannot lock onto them." "Then we fight blind," Dracos roared, his multi-jointed tail lashing. "We swarm them. We unleash our full might, mobilize all remaining houses, every warship, every fighter, every warrior. We will meet them in open space. They will break against our will." Commands for a mass mobilization, a furious, uncoordinated counteroffensive, blazed across Draconian networks. Yet even as ships rumbled to life, the subtle tremors of fear ran through the ranks. Warriors who had faced down Xylos fleets without hesitation now looked at the void with dawning dread. The screams of their comrades, relayed moments before their silent obliteration, haunted their comms. Their pride demanded vengeance, but their instincts screamed impossible odds. It was a doomed, furious gesture, a species clinging to its ancient, broken identity. B. The Valar. Consensus. Silent dread. Deep within their shrouded territories, where nebulas swirled like cosmic secrets, the Valar consensus experienced the revelation not as an external broadcast, but as a profound, chilling violation of their collective peace. Their unique telepathic network, typically a harmonious flow of shared thought, was suddenly bombarded. Janli's message wasn't just words, it was raw intent, an implacable will that resonated with the very core of their collective being. The images of the angel fleet, of the Hades fields, of the gifted subtle energies. They understood it with a horrifying, intuitive clarity that bypassed logical processing. No shouts of defiance, no cries of panic. Instead, a profound, soul-deep silence descended upon the Valar. Their collective consciousness, usually vibrant with life, flickered, dimmed, and then coalesced into a single, overwhelming wave of resignation. They felt humanity's cold, justified anger, its centuries of suppressed power, its unyielding demand for dominance. They understood their fate, silent, terrifying erasure. Their protocols of deep withdrawal, of becoming undetectable, were initiated, not as defiance, but as a final, desperate act of preserving some semblance of their essence before the inevitable. Their silence was the deepest expression of their dread, a species comprehending its own impending oblivion. 3. The silent oversight of humanity. High above the galactic chaos, on the bridge of Heaven's Gate, the inner quintet monitored the unfolding galactic reaction with grim satisfaction. The vast holographic display, once filled with the red alerts of enemy activity, was now a map of desperate, futile gestures. Xylos command structures are in full disarray, General Armitage reported, a flicker of satisfaction in his eyes. Their calls for unification are being ignored. Draconian fleets are mobilizing for a countercharge. Archangel's sub-AIs are calculating optimal interdiction points for Hades fields. The Thakar are already beginning their data transfer, Ambassador Valerius confirmed, a thin smile on his lips. Their pragmatism is, as always, their most exploitable trait. Maeve O'Connell watched the emotional readouts from alien populations. Fear is universal, she murmured, but the Draconians' pride will make them the most difficult. The Valar, their silence is profound. They grasp the finality. Archangel's calm, resonant voice cut through the reports. Processing galactic comms traffic at 99.7% efficiency. All attempts at covert action or uncoordinated resistance are immediately detected and cross-referenced with Angel Fleet assets. Localized neutralization protocols are being executed automatically. There was no need for Jian Li to issue further commands. Any desperate, irrational lashing out, a rogue Xylos frigate attempting a surprise attack, a draconian suicide squad trying to infiltrate a newly secured supply depot, was met not with a blaring alarm, but with cold, silent efficiency. An Angel Fleet interceptor would appear, unleash a surgical Zeus beam, or a demon unit would materialize, neutralizing the threat before it could even register on wider alien sensors. The vast influx of chaotic data was simply a symphony of confirmations for Archangel, a digital testament to humanity's crushing, unassailable power. The galaxy was screaming, but humanity was merely listening, its silence the most terrifying weapon of all. The Hidden Hand of Soul, Book 2. Chapter 27. Reaching Out. First Contact with the Colonies. The colossal shadow of an angel dreadnought, the Dawnbringer, now hung motionless over New Elysium, blotting out the alien sun. Its silent, obsidian mass was both a promise of salvation and a chilling testament to the centuries of deception. On the surface, the initial euphoria that had swept through the colony after the Draconian fleet's impossible disappearance had begun to curdle into a bewildered, uncomfortable silence following Jian Li's galaxy-wide broadcast. The truth, in its brutal simplicity, was sinking in. Young Kalen, released from his father's tight embrace, now stood beside him, watching the towering ship. The joy was still there, a bright ember in his heart, but it was now laced with a growing sense of unease. His parents, who had believed so fiercely in humanity's struggle against overwhelming odds, looked lost, their relief warring with a dawning bewilderment. They had all this, Kalen's father whispered, his voice hoarse, his gaze fixed on the angel ship. All this time, and they let us believe we were alone. Miles above, aboard the battered bridge of the Valiant, Captain Eva Rostova gripped the railing, her knuckles white. The broadcast, Jian Li's cold, commanding voice, had confirmed her bitter realization. Her father's sacrifice, her comrades' desperate last stands, the constant gnawing fear for their lives, all had been part of a carefully orchestrated lie. They were not valiant defenders, but unwitting pawns in a galactic game. Then, a new voice broke through the Valiant's comms. It was Archangel, calm and resonant, but directed specifically at them. Old Fleet Vessel Valiant, this is Heaven's Gate. Your sector has been secured. Your resistance against overwhelming odds has been noted, Captain Rostova. Acknowledgement of sacrifice is paramount. Rostova flinched. Acknowledged. What did that even mean? Heaven's Gate, she responded, her voice strained. This is Captain Eva Rostova of the Valiant. We hold station. Identify yourselves. Explain yourselves. The anger simmered just beneath her disciplined exterior. Explanation will follow, Archangel replied, its voice devoid of judgment, merely stating fact. For now, understand that your struggle was not in vain. It was a vital component of a strategy designed to ensure humanity's ultimate survival. A devil transport, Shadow Weaver, is approaching your position for direct contact. Do not engage. As the sleek, smaller devil transport, Charon's Ferry's sibling design, shimmered into existence near the Valiant, its dark hull almost invisible against the void, Rostova felt a fresh surge of indignation. These ships too had been hidden, while her crew fought with century-old kinetic cannons. She saw the faces of her crew, confusion, awe, some tearful relief, but also a growing spark of the same hurt she felt. On New Elysium, the Dawnbringer extended a shimmering, almost invisible gangway of pure energy down to the colony's central plaza. From it, a small team emerged. They wore crisp, black uniforms, starkly modern, their movements precise and efficient. Leading them was a young woman, her aura radiating a calm authority, but also a profound, underlying empathy that immediately soothed the colonists' frayed nerves. It was Elara Vance, one of the gifted, accompanied by a demon army unit, silent and watchful. Its very presence, a chilling reminder of the power unleashed. Elara's voice, amplified but gentle, reached every colonist. Greetings, citizens of New Elysium. My name is Elara Vance. We are here to ensure your safety and to begin the process of integration into a new era for humanity. Her empathetic senses, constantly open, registered the turbulent mix of emotions. Overwhelming relief, cautious hope, but also a palpable undercurrent of confusion and betrayal. She felt the sharp sting of their disappointment, a collective question screaming in the air. Why did you let us suffer? She paused, her gaze sweeping over the wary, hopeful faces. "We understand that much of what you have just learned is disorienting, even painful," Elara continued, her voice holding a genuine note of sorrow that resonated with her gifted empathy. "The choices made were hard. The burden of our secret was immense, but they were made to ensure that one day we could stand before you, not as supplicants, but as liberators. The suffering you endured, the battles you fought, the lives that were lost, they were not for nothing. They bought us the centuries we needed. They secured our future. Now we are here to finally claim it. Together." Her words, simple and direct, were carried by her empathetic resonance, bypassing immediate anger and fostering a glimmer of understanding. The colonists, still reeling, felt the sincerity in her voice, a feeling that bypassed the rational brain. The initial relief, pushed aside by the broadcast's revelations, surged back, mixed now with a cautious optimism. Back aboard the Valiant, the Devil transport had docked. A contingent of Angel Fleet officers, led by a stern-faced but respectful commander, stepped onto Rostova's bridge. Their uniforms were pristine, their presence radiating competence. The contrast with her own weary, battle-scarred crew and the Valiant's worn bridge was stark, almost insulting. "Captain Rostova," the Angel Fleet commander began, his voice firm. "We are here to facilitate the transition of the old human fleet. Your vessels will be secured and your crews debriefed. Rest assured, your service to humanity has been invaluable." Rostova's jaw clenched. Invaluable. She wanted to rage, to demand answers, to ask why they were left to die. But her decades of military discipline held her tongue. She looked at her crew, their faces a mixture of relief, fear, and a similar, dawning betrayal. She knew her fight wasn't over. It had just changed. The galaxy was safe, but humanity itself was about to embark on its own complex reckoning, one where the saviors would have to account for their hidden past.